If there is one concept that many kids are first taught when it comes to science, it's the simple idea of opposites attract through the use of magnets. Heck, many kids' toys from the late 1980s to the early 2000s had the idea for magnetism in them for various fun methods most kids would not be aware of fully unless they took geology as a study. I mean, you guys remember buckyballs? I mean, they're still illegal and they'll puncture your intestines and stuff, but I found them really fun. That being said, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not alone when it comes to the use of magnets through the Magnet Warriors. However, I'm not referring to Yugi's Magnet Warriors of Alpha, Beta, and Gamma that turn into Valkyrian. Rather, I'm referring to the other Magnet Warriors, used by the god among men himself, Bastion Misawa. For you see, Bastion's three main Magnet Warriors worked on a plus and minus mechanic through being unable to declare an attack against a monster who matches their category, and must attack one who is their opposite. For example, Magnet Warrior Omega Minus cannot attack a copy of itself or any other minus monsters, and it has to attack plus monsters. As well, they come with a series of spell and trap cards that can turn your opponent's monsters into plus or minus monsters, which can repel threats or bring weaker monsters into your own to be slayed. Pretty nice ideas for a basic gimmick. I mean, the cards are awful, but it's still fun and sciencey, so I have to give some respect to that. Thank you, Bastion. Another concept many children should be familiar with is the life cycle through the stages of the butterfly. This important step into one's knowledge was indeed so fun as a kid that there used to be mail-order caterpillars you can raise into butterflies and release into the wild. Such a unique idea must have transferred to Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Well, close? We did get Weevil's cards, including Cocoon of Evolution, but that was more so for a moth rather than a butterfly. But the concept is still the same. You put the bug inside the cocoon and wait. And how long you wait determines the stage of bug you get. As for 2 turns, you get Larvae Moth, which is just this little dude who does nothing and you'd never choose him, but he's only there for flavor reasons. 4 turns for Great Moth, and 6 turns for Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. Did I mention these cards are absolutely terrible? Well, I mean, they were so bad that Konami thankfully decided to revamp Weevil's theme in Legendary Duelist 2 with the Cocoon of Ultra Evolution that puts the pesky life cycle into overdrive and shuts out bugs like a contestant on Fear Factor. Now I feel old for remembering Fear Factor, of all things. You guys remember that? What was that on? Was that on G4? No, G4 had Ninja Warrior. Anyway, next one. Speaking of nature and how damn scary it can be, now we come to another part of nature that makes you glad to be an apex predator, being compared to, well, bugs who get caught in these traps. Traptrix monsters! They're the representation of these traps, and not in the femboy way, though the clever references of insects and plants that create traps to ensnare their prey and to devour. Whether that be the antlion Myrmelio, the pitcher plant Nepenthes, or the Venus flytrap Dionaya, these ladies have been a tour de force from hat format onward. The only confusing thing about them is what exactly is the trap in Traptrix? Are the girls just bait made by the plants and insects, or fairies that work in tangent with the traps to capture food? Or was the joke a dead shot and these really are traps on the level of Astolfo? You make the call! I personally think it's the first one. Back to our boy Bastion, and this time he's busting out the chem lab equipment and going mad scientist on us. Number 7 is a basic but a lovely one. The chemical bonding dinos, known as Hydrogeddon, Oxygeddon, and Deuterion. Hydrogeddon and Oxygeddon are the 2 simple ones of this, as hydrogen and oxygen, and the fact that you use bonding H2O to make Water Dragon via 2 Hydrogeddons and 1 Oxygeddon. Because water is H2O, you get 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. Boom. But where does Deuterion come into this theme? Deuterion comes from deuterium, aka heavy hydrogen. Which makes sense given the legendary Duelist 1 support for Bastion with the 2 bonding cards, bonding D2O and bonding DHO, in order to make Water Dragon or Water Dragon Cluster, aka heavy water or dense water. We're not here to give you an entire science lesson, just get the general idea through. Science can be fun when used properly after all, even something this basic. Now the only issue left to be solved by Konami is, well, can you make Fire Dragon please? You can make Carbonetton? Oh wait, that's an actual card. So yeah, you have your full fuel source, you got it, just do it. Make bonding CO2 or something, give the fans what they want. Also, speaking of Carbonetton, number 5 is the 3rd scientific reference that Bastion pulled off in the show, and it's legit a clever one. It's actually the entire reason we made this video, because I didn't know about this thing's anime effect, and I thought, oh my god, that's so neat! Are there others? Yes, of course there are others. So we all should know the Carbonetton is supposed to be the carbon member of the chemical dinos, and it's a funky monster in its own rights, given its use for engines and the like. You basically just summon Labradorite Dragon. That's what this thing does. As for Bastion's use of it, he makes Carbonetton into the level 7 Hyozan Ryu, a dragon with diamond skin. For those unaware of this, somehow, Carbon undergoes a lot of pressure deep underground, and over thousands of years of this pressure, it forms diamonds. That is legit a clever reference of a monster, and Bastion himself shows this off against Jaden nonetheless. I'd also like to note that in real life you can still do this, Carbonetton into Hyozan Ryu, but it loses a bit of its anime flavor because in the anime, Carbonetton needs to have 10 monsters, or 10 cards, on top of it, to pressurize it while it's in the graveyard so that you can actually use the effect to specifically summon Hyozan Ryu. That is some flavor, dude. I love it. I mean, it would be a terrible card in real life, but I like it. Good on you, Bastion, but sadly this is the last reference you'll have on this list. Using the power of the spiral, I will evolve these menial reptiles into ferocious prehistoric beasts. In case that didn't make the next entry apparent, number 5 is the Evols. At first glance, this deck may just seem like a Zexal-era deck that just kinda dies to Rivalry of Warlords, but in actuality, this deck is here to teach all you kids a thing or two about evolution, as the name might suggest. Evols are a Fire Xyz-based archetype that consists of reptiles, dinosaurs, and even dragons for their Xyz monsters. The deck's theme is that it mimics the actual evolution of dinosaurs, with the reptile monsters, the Evil Tiles, having effects to summon the dinosaur members, the Evil Zors, and said dinosaur members gaining effects if they're summoned this way, much how reptiles evolved into dinosaurs in reality, or, the best way we could do it in a card game. Now moving on to the dragon members, the Evil Zars. Well, look guys, dragons didn't exist and they still don't. Dinosaurs didn't evolve into dragons. You're not exactly seeing Aragon flying around in the middle of downtown Detroit. But this is more likely a reference to the fact that dinosaur bones were discovered by ancient cultures, and with their lack of knowledge on these creatures, it isn't crazy to assume that they reconstructed them incorrectly and interpreted them as dragons. The only issue is the lack of feathers these monsters have, but this maybe will fix in the future? Or was it already solved in the past? Huh. Forget everything Jurassic Park and other media taught you about dinosaurs, because Konami's here to teach you about the link between dinosaurs and birds! In case you didn't know, birds are literally dinosaurs. I mean, different kinds of dinosaurs, but, they evolved from them. Back in GX, a lovely raw yellow fellow by the name of Tyranno Hasselberry, also known as Mr. Dino DNA himself, introduced us to the feathery boy Archaeonus. For those who don't know, Archaeonus is based on a very important fossilized dinosaur. Wait, no, it's a bird. Oh wait, it's a dinosaur. Wait, it's a bird. Wait, actually, it's both! The Archaeopteryx, and yes, I got that on the first take, woo! Is a very important transitional fossil that helps bridge the gap between non-avian and avian dinosaurs, meaning birds. Fun fact, using a fossilized feather imprint, paleontologists were able to determine the color of the Archaeopteryx, and several other feathered dinosaurs' color. They had black feathers, much like that of a raven. Dino DNA also ran black VELOCI, a feathered velociraptor, a first for the series. It wouldn't be until 2019 when we get our next scientifically accurate dinosaur in BEATRAPTOR. BEATRAPTOR is a properly feathered raptor, also meant to be a velociraptor, more than likely. Even its effect references the fact that velociraptors were theorized to be pack hunters. While the feathers on the hands and the hands themselves aren't very accurate, as the hands are pointing down and not palms towards each other, with the feathers covering the fingers, it's a step in the right direction of giving Yu-Gi-Oh! Players more accurate dinosaur cards so they don't see these beautiful creatures as more than just scaly monsters. Coming in for number 3 are the anime-only archetype based on cloning and genetics sadly taken to mediocre, actually no, they're terrible, extremes. Helix were used by Dr. Genome in Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains and consist of, 2 level 5 main deck monsters, 2 Link 2s, a spell and a trap. Oh no. But we're not here to judge the deck on its competitive value. That'll be for another video coming soon. But instead the smart design of the cards from a thematic perspective. The deck itself is based on the concept of cloning to a degree, and mutations from experiments as a whole. And even more on the nose is how it uses the names of actual zoologists for their bosses, mainly seen in Helix Necro Darwin. You know, Charles Darwin, the guy who made Pokemon a thing. Fun fact, look it up. No, please don't look it up. Just a simple theme that takes a more advanced approach to the concept of evolution. So aside from like one of you in my audience, I'm going to assume no one here knows what topology is, considering Vsauce hasn't made a full video on the idea. You see, in mathematics, topology is the study of the properties of space that are preserved under continuous deformations. At least that's what Wikipedia told me. What does that have to do with Yu-Gi-Oh? Well, it's the framing for the TOPOLOGIC series in Yu-Gi-Oh! Topologics, for those somehow unaware, are a series of cyberse links used by Revolver in Vrains, and each one takes its design and naming base from either a single concept in topology or multiple concepts. To go in order of name, Topologic Bomber Dragon is based on a Klein bottle, as well as a Mobius strip. And yes, a Mobius strip is more than just that stupid bagel video that everyone was sharing around on Facebook like 3 years ago. It's a thing, it's not just a bagel, you can look that up if you like. Also, don't cut your bagels this way unless you really want to be pretentious. GUMBLAR Dragon is based on the concept of infinity, as well as subsets and supersets. Fitting, given he is the one that loops your hand until death comes for you. Trisbana is actually named after the idea of trisbaning, which is what happens when ice is sublimated into water vapor within the container of any substance that is positively charged, where the vapor is trapped within the substance, usually potassium dioxide for the best effect. This leads to an ionized gas that is extremely volatile to any sort of stimulus, and basically explodes on contact with most things, like this cotton ball.
For the first test, I just dropped a cotton ball on it. The reaction was quite fast, and it also generated a lot of heat, so it almost immediately lit on fire. For the next run, I did it with a potato chip, and it was mostly the oil in it that reacted. This time though, for whatever reason, it let off. I did it again from another angle, just to really show how much it was letting off. The chip didn't react nearly as much, but the effect was pretty much the same.
And finally, the most recent one, Zerovoros, is based on the trefoil knot. Such a marvel that math can be, right? Especially when one of them is just named after a knot that your kid would make in Boy Scouts. I mean, who would do that? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I researched this. I understand very complex mathematical ideas. Come on, guys. Don't you? Our final entry today is a monolithic monument to the mastery mankind must make over space. It's literally named after what it's based on. Number 9! Dyson Sphere! The most intelligent members of the audience need no introduction to this megastructure, and if you don't know what it is, first of all, watch at least up to Season 3 of Rick and Morty. Okay, now that you're back and you realize that Season 3 is the worst season, and that probably Rick and Morty Season 4 is going to be weird because of the fact that the creators are just absolute crazy people. A Dyson Sphere is a titanic mechanical structure that encompasses a star, like our sun, and directly absorbs the energy the star lets off. Yes, it is a man-made machine that literally eats a sun, meaning it has to be bigger than the sun. Also, just a note, this is a theoretical idea, this has not been done, you cannot just look up into the sky and see the fact that the sun has been entirely overtaken. It's a sci-fi concept, probably within our reach in the next century or so, but, you know, you gotta just say that. Dyson Spheres are like solar panels on crack, the ultimate culmination of human construction, science, and even a bit of creativity. Unfortunately, Dyson Sphere in the game, besides the art, it barely even represents the thing it's a reference to. I mean, it kinda does. I mean, I'll give you what you want to hear, and then you can make your own interpretation. Number 9 theoretically should be indestructible by normal means, considering I don't think most cards in the game should be able to destroy a megastructure that's larger than the sun, but, you know, we're not exactly going to put Divine Hierarchy into the game. Number 9 can negate attacks once per turn while it has Xyz materials, because, you know, have you ever tried to punch the sun? Or shoot the sun? Or fire energy at the sun? No? It won't work. Recycling materials from the grave, even though logically it would be the deck, as it would be a good approximation to the sun, I guess. And finally, by using a material, it can attack directly while your opponent controls a stronger monster. Even though attacks from the literal sun should always be direct attacks. It's kind of funny to think that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series with aliens introduced a Dyson Sphere that is linked with said aliens, as in 2017, a star was observed dimming and brightening as if something large enough to block its light was passing in front of it. So the internet went a little nuts and believed it might have been an alien-built Dyson Sphere. Astronomers later concluded that this was not the case, but it is interesting to think about. What could be out there? What can humans? What are humans? And is space as empty as some think it is? My thoughts are that it's not empty, it's just that aliens will never contact us, because we haven't found them yet. And if we found them now, that would mean that it would be, you know, well outside our solar system. So, good luck with that. You think faster than light travel's a real thing? Stop watching Star Trek, guys. They only have like 75% of their science seem to make sense.